Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad you all are here to join us for our webinar today, External Appearance, Internal Feelings, Changing Our Approach, Not Our Bodies. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Erin Byerly, and I am your Alumni Services Coordinator and will be the moderator for today's online presentation. So before I introduce you all to today's presenter, Gabby DeParis-Hale, APC NCC, I want to go over a few announcements as well as give others some extra time to join. So first off, I want to thank everyone for joining us today during this year's Eating Disorders Awareness Week. Renfrew's theme for this year is Our Bodies, Our Truths, and we have plenty of support lined up for this week. So we're offering both live and on-demand options. That way, everyone's able to receive support in the way that best fits their schedule. So if you're looking for the full schedule of both live and on-demand events, I really encourage you to head over to our Instagram at Renfrew Center. We've got a list of everything on there, and you'll be able to figure out kind of what works for you, and also go to renfrewcenter.com/events to register for any that interests you. Next, we also want to make sure you all know about our outpatient groups that are currently available. So on Mondays from 12 to 1 weekly, we are hosting a virtual midlife outpatient group that is open to residents of Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Oklahoma. Then on Wednesdays from 6 to 7 p.m., we are hosting an in-person outpatient group for residents in and around our White Plains, New York site. So if you're interested in either of these outpatient groups or to hear about what other options we have, please reach out to 1-800-RENFREW and our program information team will be happy to help you figure out kind of what works best for you and get you all set up for that. We are also still hosting our residential alumni support groups monthly, with our next meeting scheduled for Tuesday, March 18th from 4 until 5 p.m. And then in April, it'll be on Tuesday, the 22nd, again from 4 until 5. And lastly, I want to make sure you all are aware of our upcoming webinars we'll be having this spring. Our monthly webinars are a great way to get some extra support around some more specific topics. And as you can see on this slide, we've got a lot of great topics coming up. So I really hope you all will join us for those as well. You can find registration for the webinars and really all of our events and more that we haven't even covered today on the events page at renfrewcenter.com. So please check it out. Very easy. It's a one click once you get to renfrewcenter.com. And as always, if you're feeling like you need more support at this time or in the future, please reach out to 1-800-RENFREW. We're happy to let you know about what we have in terms of support, as well as help get you set up with it as well. So following this webinar, we would love your feedback. You'll be receiving an evaluation form via email. It's very easily completed online. And this form and your responses really help us to develop new and innovative programs and new topics that are going to help assist you in your recovery. So it's a really valuable piece of information that we're hoping you will provide us. We'll be having question and answer session following today's presentation from Gabby. You can submit questions at any time during the webinar by typing them into the chat function or the Q&A function. If you're doing it in chat, just make sure it goes to all panelists and not to everyone, just so it's only us panelists seeing it. And we will hold on asking Gabby those questions until she has completed the presentation. So I would like to now introduce you to today's presenter. Gabby DeParis-Hale, MS APC NCC, is the team lead and alumni representative at the Renfrew Center of Atlanta. Gabby is a graduate of Providence College, where she received a bachelor's degree in theater and psychology in 2018, and Georgia State University, where she received her master's degree in clinical mental health counseling in 2022. Joining the Renfrew Center of Atlanta in 2022, Gabby enjoys incorporating values work when treating individuals recovering from eating disorders, as well as exploring the impact of media and culture on body image. She is an active member of the American Counseling Association and the National Board of Certified Counselors. So I'm so happy to have Gabby presenting today, and I will turn it over to her.
Thank you so much, Erin. And thank you to everyone who is there, even though I can't see you. It seems like there are quite a few people here so far, so thank you so much already. Yes, I am very excited to be talking about this topic today. The title being External Appearance, Internal Feelings, Changing Our Approach, Not Our Bodies. So I wanted to actually start by sharing a quote because I think that this quote really encompasses the message that I hope to get across today through this webinar. It is from the book, The Woman in the Mirror, How to Stop Confusing What You Look Like with Who You Are, which is by Dr. Cynthia M. Bulick. It reads, "We think that if we were thinner, fitter, taller, less wrinkled, or more put together, we'd feel better about ourselves, be more powerful, be more lovable, and become more successful. So we try to fix what's ailing us on the inside with a diet, a nose job, implants, Botox, expensive anti-wrinkle creams, and new shoes. We go to great lengths and expense to change our bodies and dress them up to fit some external notion of what's ideal. Yet for all the diets, cosmetics, and procedures, we are no happier with our bodies or ourselves." One of the biggest thinking traps we have been conditioned to fall into is that our happiness is dependent on our appearance. So if we fit the ideal or the standard, we'll have everything we want and therefore be happier. We then spend a lot of time and money trying to achieve this ideal when the reality is that the root of our unhappiness never had anything to really do with our external appearance in the first place, and that changing our external selves does not actually change the inner voice telling us that we're not good enough. So in order to begin separating our appearance from our sense of self-worth, it's important to understand the difference between self-image and body image, because we often confuse or mix up self-image and body image. So that's one of the reasons why our weight and appearance becomes so strongly tied to our emotions and our self-concept. So self-image can be defined as how you see yourself and how you believe others see you, basically your overall perception of yourself. Self-image includes your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs about your personality traits, your abilities, and your physical appearance. And self-image is also closely related to self-esteem. Self-esteem, just to throw it in there, one of the definitions about it would be more so about it's how you feel about yourself, while self-image is how you see yourself and how you believe others see you. Whereas then body image could be defined as how you see yourself when you look in the mirror and when you picture yourself in your mind. Body image also includes how you think and feel about your body, and it also often reflects what you're feeling emotionally. So, for example, if you're feeling proud, your body image may improve or increase. And when you're feeling discouraged or insecure, it may worsen or decrease. It's important to note that both self-image and body image are shaped by your own individual unique thoughts and beliefs, which may often be inaccurate or skewed because they're based off of your own experiences and how you view yourself, which again, as we know, is not necessarily always the same as how other people view you or see you. So Body image is a learned behavior. We're not born disliking or hating our bodies. Body image is influenced by a multitude of factors and sources, and these are just some of the many influences on our body image. Emphasis on some of the many, because there would be way too many for me to fit onto one slide. But media being one example, which includes like magazines, TVs, movies, etc. It also could even include books, honestly. Um, with media, there are ideals that are presented to us through media, social media, the fashion and beauty industries. And often these ideals are ones of thinness. So the models and actors that are often represented usually are thin. And we use these people, if you will, as comparisons for how we should look. And if we don't look like them, we can start to believe that there must be something wrong with us and that we need to do whatever it takes to look like them. Again, these models, actors, etc. The opinions of people who are closest to us matter the most. And I want to add how we interpret those opinions is also important to keep in mind too, because our interpretations don't always match their intentions. So when looking at like family, friends or peers, romantic partners, how focused and or caught up in appearances our friends or peers are does influence our own body image and our own levels of body satisfaction, meaning the more focused our friends and peers are on appearance and the more that they talk about it, the more focused and aware we become of our own appearance, and usually not in a positive way. And then in turn, too, how invested parents and family members are in appearance also influences body image, both directly and indirectly. So examples of direct influence could be like specific and direct comments about weight and shape. This could also look like actively putting children on diets to lose weight, whereas indirect influence refers more so to modeling behaviors. So a parent or a relative can state that they're accepting of all body shapes and weights, but their actions may not always align with those statements. So if a family member or relative displays their own body dissatisfaction by saying things like, I look fat in this, or I can't eat that, I'm on a diet, you're taking in and interpreting all of those comments and can begin to fear that regardless of what your family or relative says to you, this is what they're really thinking internally. Sports, especially those with an emphasis on weight or appearance, such as figure skating, gymnastics, dance, just to name a few, can also clearly impact body image. It's interesting because it's not necessarily always the sport itself that impacts body image, but rather the people in the sport, like coaches, trainers, teammates. And part of it is because in these sports, weight or appearance is often tied to performance and success. So I think about statements like being at fighting weight or being in fighting shape. Those statements can insinuate that if you're over your fighting weight, you'll take down the team. And then there can also be pressure to perform well in order to get scholarships, make certain divisions, or win awards or medals. And if performance is tied to weight and appearance, you then in turn will likely blame or shame your weight if you don't perform well. With cultural and societal standards, beauty ideals definitely differ across cultures. So, for example, what is considered the standard or the ideal in Black or Latina or Asian or Native American communities can be different from the standard of white communities. And there's often a clash in those standards or ideals. that can leave you feeling like you don't measure up in at least one community if you possess multiple identities. And then last, but I guess not least, diet culture. Um, Diet culture has a major impact on body image because it focuses on thinness and equates it to health and moral virtue. Diet culture also promotes weight loss as a means of attaining higher status, and at the same time also oppresses people who don't match up with its supposed picture of health, which i.e. is thinness. One of the many problems with this is that there are so many other indicators of health than thinness, and thinness is not necessarily always an indicator of health. And diet culture like actively does not acknowledge people's individual experiences, genetics, and other unique factors that end up in impacting like shape, weight, and overall health status. The main message sent by all of these sources is that it's not okay to look like you and that you need to change your appearance to match the ideal. We constantly hear about what is wrong with our bodies, what we're doing wrong with our bodies, and how to fix or change them. As we'll explore a little bit later on in the webinar, not only do these messages cause further harm to our body image, but the solutions they offer don't actually resolve or get to the actual root of the problem. So, body image and the factors that influence it do contain a lot of moving pieces, which can make the general concept of body image feel confusing and overwhelming. So it can be helpful to break the concept of body image down into more specific components, which can generally be done so in the following way. So first you have perceptual body image, which would be the way in which you see your body. That's not always necessarily an accurate representation of how you actually look. Then there's affective body image, which refers to the way that you feel about your body. So feelings may include happiness or disgust, and it's often just summarized as the amount of satisfaction or dissatisfaction you feel about your shape, your weight, and individual body parts. Cognitive body image refers to the way in which you think about your body, which can lead to preoccupation with body shape and weight. And then lastly, there's behavioral body image, which are the behaviors that you engage in as a result of like your overall body image, encompassing, the perceptual, the affective, and the cognitive. So when a person is dissatisfied with the way that they look, for example, they may isolate themselves or engage in unhealthy behaviors to change their appearance. So each of the four components that I just mentioned relate to one another, and the relationship that I want to focus on is the one that I've depicted here. So the way in which we see our bodies, feel about our bodies, and or think about our bodies, again, meaning the perceptual, the affective, and the cognitive, often drive the behaviors we engage in to try and control or change our bodies. So for example, if I see my body as fat or too big, if I feel my body is disgusting or inadequate, or if I think my body is the culprit or reason for most or all of my hardships, then I may engage in behaviors that reflect those thoughts and feelings, such as restricting, binging, purging, exercising, isolating, dieting, laxative use. The list could go on and on. However, then, these behaviors then reinforce the way we see, feel, and think about our bodies. So the behavior is reinforcing the perceptual, the affective, and the cognitive. So, example, If I engage in binging and purging, I'm providing myself with further evidence to suggest that my beliefs that I'm fat and disgusting and that my body is the cause of all of my problems is accurate, which will then bring me back to engaging in binging and purging. So, really, at the end of the day, this is a vicious cycle that'll continue to repeat itself if we don't do something to break it. And the way to break it is not actually by changing your body. So, changing your body is ineffective in breaking the cycle of negative body image for multiple reasons. One of the reasons is because, as alluded to in the previous slide, we're expecting to feel differently about ourselves and our bodies by changing our appearance. But the reality is that these efforts to change our bodies are actually just reinforcing the hurtful inner dialogue that already exists and the belief that something is wrong with our bodies that needs to be fixed or solved. Another reason why changing your body doesn't work is because our bodies are a lot more trustworthy than we give them credit for and have a natural set point that they will always find a way to come back to. Dieting efforts are often not sustainable, and more often than not, the weight that one loses through dieting is regained once previous and normalized eating patterns are resumed. Even if we don't diet, as we age, our bodies are going to change. So even if we do reach a shape and size that we're happy at, that happiness will last only so long if we're basing it mostly or solely off of what we look like. So again, just to elaborate a little bit more, so changes that we do make to our bodies are often not sustainable, again, like the dieting and whatnot, but then even not sustainable as we age, and can sometimes be dangerous. And I think we can acknowledge that there are dangers to chronic dieting and whatnot, but then I'm also even thinking about, cosmetic procedures and the risks that are associated with that, and then even some of these weight loss drugs that are out there now too. So just acknowledging that usually it's either not sustainable or dangerous. I feel like it's kind of one or the other sometimes. And then lastly, again, but probably not leastly, if you will, our body is not actually the problem. So our thoughts and feelings about our bodies are deeply rooted and stem from a multitude of life experiences that no amount of physical change will fully address or heal. So changing your body doesn't work because we're not addressing that root. With that, I know this is probably counterintuitive to a lot of people and goes against a lot of what's been ingrained in us. So I imagine, even though I can't see you fully, I imagine everyone watching is having a reaction similar to this. Yeah. So if we work on adjusting the ways in which we see our bodies, feel about our bodies, and think about our bodies, the behaviors we engage in will shift too. So this is the now what, right? Like we're going to work on adjusting the way that we see, feel, and think about our bodies. So, for example, if you see your body in a more neutral way, if you feel more neutral about your body, and if you think in a more neutral way about your body, you won't feel the need to engage in behaviors to try and change or alter it because you're accepting of it as it is, which then breaks this vicious cycle and it creates a more adaptive cycle of reinforcement, if you will. So how do we work on that, right? So here is a list of things that we can do to actively work on the ways in which we see our bodies, feel about our bodies, and think about our bodies. So, first is reappraisals. So, while we can't erase or subtract the unhelpful thoughts that have already popped into our heads about our bodies, we are able to add to them. So reappraisals are not creating the positive opposite of the thought, but about adding more thoughts into our inner dialogue so that the hurtful ones don't take up as much space. So, for example, you may have thoughts such as, I look disgusting and I feel fat. Reappraisals, again, keeping in mind that it's not about necessarily creating the polar positive opposite of it. Reappraisals for these thoughts could be, I don't necessarily like the way that I look today, and that's okay. Or my worth is not determined by my appearance. That is not a feeling. Maybe what's going on is that I feel uncomfortable or insecure. Or even, whoa, okay, I am having an unhelpful thought about my body right now, and I can choose what I do with it. So again, those would just be some examples of what reappraisals could look like. Self-compassion, of course, is another way on how we can work on this. So when applied to body image, self-compassion can look like noticing and acknowledging any judgments or criticisms or hatred or dislike of your body and responding to that hurtful inner dialogue with kindness and understanding. This actually communicates that it's okay for things to feel hard or difficult without shaming yourself further for how you're feeling. Because if you shame yourself further for how you're feeling, that could just lead to unhelpful behaviors or further unhelpful thoughts. Self compassion also includes remembering that you're not alone in your suffering and that feeling inadequate at times is actually a shared part of the human experience. So, this provides you the opportunity to practice reminding yourself when you catch yourself in negative body image talk that just because you have a thought doesn't mean that it's true or that you need to act on it, but rather that you can remind yourself that how you're feeling actually makes a lot of sense and that you aren't alone in how you're feeling. Body kindness and respect, which I think we end up going into a bit more detail on too later on. So don't worry if I don't say too much about it right now. But even if you are struggling with negative thoughts about your body, you can still choose to treat your body with kindness and respect. Because remember, our behaviors send messages to ourselves and strongly influence our thoughts and feelings. And if we're engaging in behaviors that demonstrate kindness and respect, over time, our thoughts and feelings can and often do end up shifting towards ones of kindness and respect. Body kindness and respect could look like putting on lotion, washing your face, following your meal plan, adequately hydrating, or taking a yoga class. And again, like I said, some additional examples will end up coming up a little bit later on. Mindfulness, everyone's favorite at times, I know, um, can actually also be helpful in working on perceptual, affective, and cognitive body image. So by actively engaging in the present moment, and non-judgmentally, of course, observing your thoughts and feelings, you can develop a more positive relationship with your body. Mindfulness can teach you to accept your body as it is, without criticism or judgment, which can lead to greater self acceptance. And when you're practicing mindfulness, you also then become aware of the negative self talk and the harmful narratives that you create around your body. And then in turn, you learn to detach from these thoughts and observe them without necessarily getting entangled in their emotional grip. And through mindful awareness of those thoughts, you can begin to start challenging your self critical beliefs and replace them with self compassion and understanding, which kind of is tying in some of the previous concepts. A key aspect, though, of mindfulness, especially when applied to body image, is cultivating a sense of curiosity and kindness towards yourself. Because if you do so, you learn to approach your body with gentleness and empathy, and at the same time, acknowledging the beauty and uniqueness of our individual physical forms. And this shift in perspective can then allow you to let go of societal standards and unrealistic ideals, embracing your body as it naturally is, imperfection, strengths, and all. When practicing mindfulness, you are also actually developing a deeper connection with your body and becoming more attuned to your physical sensations, to your emotions, and to your needs. Because by bringing more awareness to your body's cues, you then can make choices that actually truly honor your well being and engage in self care practices that nourish both your body and your mind. And then, lastly, with mindfulness, it can actually also help you break free of the cycle of comparing yourself to others. So instead of, and this of course too is through repeated practice, but instead of measuring your self-worth based on external appearances, mindfulness invites you to appreciate the uniqueness of your own body. And so if we're acknowledging, appreciating even, and or just accepting of the uniqueness, then, there's almost no room for comparison then, because unique, I think, automatically insinuates, individual and different, right? So you can't compare one unique thing to another, if you will, because they're both going to be unique. And then lastly, body appreciation. Body appreciation is the practice of recognizing and expressing gratitude for your body, both physical traits and functionality, regardless of appearance. Body appreciation is not necessarily about loving every feature of your physical appearance or the number of things that your body can do, but it is about valuing your body's current abilities and acknowledging its limitations with self compassion and with care. It's also about being thankful for any of the positives, such as a unique physical trait passed down through generations, or your body's ability to heal from infection or illness. There are 4 key components of body appreciation, which you see listed there. So, with positive regard, that is viewing your body positively for what it is without trying to change it to fit someone else's definition of beauty. And then we have acceptance and appreciation, which is valuing your body for its unique qualities and abilities and being grateful for what it can do for you. Respect is kind of what it sounds like in terms of treating your body with respect and care. So that could look like eating when hungry, engaging in enjoyable and flexible movement, or resting when needed. And then the last component is resisting sociocultural appearance pressures. So being aware of the unrealistic beauty standards that are often portrayed in the media, and not letting those standards dictate how you feel about your body is what we mean when we say resisting sociocultural appearance pressures. So again, being aware of those unrealistic standards and not letting those standards dictate how you feel about your body. So I know I've thrown a lot out there so far, and we're going to put all of this together now, because I'm acknowledging that the 4 components of body appreciation actually incorporate many of the other concepts listed. Sorry, I'm going to go back to the previous slide for a second. Incorporate many of the other concepts listed on this slide when put into action. So this part is going to be putting into action. These are 4 ways that I'll go through. But again, like I said, you'll likely notice that there's some overlap between what I said on the previous slide. So gratitude in practice with body appreciation, for example, could be every day, write down 1 to 3 things you're grateful for about your body. So for example, could be I'm grateful for my body's ability to recover after the cold I had last week. Or could be I'm grateful for my hearing that allows me to listen to my favorite music. I do want to note this activity can feel hard if you have a disability, illness, or have lost a function, or have lost some function from a previous point in your life. It is okay and normal to allow yourself space to grieve, and your emotions and experiences are valid. Respect and care for your body. I think it kind of goes without saying, but the way that we treat our bodies matters a lot. So show respect and care for your body through nourishing meals, gentle movement, adequate rest, and other self-care practices. By prioritizing your body's needs, you acknowledge its importance, which in turn shows appreciation. So this could include scheduling a bedtime, or I'm sorry, setting a bedtime and scheduling it so you get adequate sleep. So kind of the follow through is important there too. Saying no to an extra obligation so you can have some downtime. Could be going for a 10-minute walk outside twice this week before your day starts to get some morning sunlight and gentle movement. Maybe it's making time for your favorite Saturday afternoon group yoga. It could also look like making a pitcher of infused water so that you're inspired to drink more throughout the day. With reappraising, again, because I know I spoke to that definitely on the last slide, with reappraising negative body thoughts, as we've talked about, right, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are all intertwined. It is our natural instinct to focus on the negative. However, negative thoughts about our bodies can become a significant barrier to body appreciation and overall just how we feel about our bodies. So, on a day when you feel neutral or even maybe positive about your body, jot down some negative thoughts that frequently cross your mind. For each of these thoughts, come up with a reappraisal of some sort. It could potentially, I guess, be positive in nature, if you will. It could be neutral, but again, it's not necessarily the positive opposite of the thought. But, you know, I'm thinking about the one that I shared earlier as an example in terms of, it's okay that something along the lines of, right, like it's okay that I'm not feeling okay about my body today, and I can still choose what I do with it. I do feel like there's a neutral bordering on positive connotation there, but again, it's not necessarily me identifying the polar positive opposite of the initial thought of, I look disgusting today. So with all that, right, when you create this list, keep it handy and add to it as new negative thoughts arise so that when tougher days come around, you can refer back to it for a gentle reminder of the reappraisals that you were able to create when you were feeling more neutral about yourself. It is completely okay if this feels challenging at first, because remember, it is a practice and it will get easier with time. So, some additional examples, I guess. Let's say that you have a thought that my stomach is too flabby. A reappraisal in this sense might be my stomach is integral to my body. It digests my food, which provides me the energy I need to stay alive. Or another thought could be, I wish my arms were smaller. And a reappraisal for that could be, my arms allow me to hug my loved ones when I've had a tough day, providing me with a sense of safety and solace. So, again, it actually ties into this focusing on functionality a little bit as well, because I'm thinking about the body parts that I may be feeling insecure about in that moment, and reappraising it by, I guess, acknowledging that I do need those body parts, and that they serve a purpose and that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, even if I don't necessarily always like the way that they look. And then with focusing on functionality, functionality appreciation is an aspect of the broader concept of body appreciation. So while body appreciation encompasses all aspects of appreciating your body, including both appearance and function, functionality appreciation hones in on the appreciation of your functional capabilities regardless of appearance. So it's taking the appearance component out of it. So how you could put that into practice could be by creating a journal of all the things that you appreciate about what your body can do versus how it looks. So it could just be, I appreciate that, fill in the blank, right? And come up with a list of everything that you can think of. So examples of that might be, I appreciate that my body, enables me to enjoy a nostalgic movie or have deep and meaningful conversations, or its ability to let me create some artwork. Whether that looks nice or not is up for debate, but it also could be, I appreciate that my body enables me to listen to my favorite music or accomplish a goal, um, or its ability to allow me to meditate or recover from illness, digest food, and then my personal favorite, taking a rejuvenating nap. So, all of that being said, we've explored the differences between self image and body image. We've seen this cycle that I've mentioned that keeps us stuck in negative body image. And then we've identified some ways that we can break that cycle. And you've heard a lot from me at this point with all of those things. So now that, especially because on this last slide, I gave you guys some potentially pretty specific examples of how you can put this into practice, I want to hear from you now. So if you scan the QR code, and/or I guess you could type in that link listed below the QR code. And it'll bring you to a form that asks you this question, which is, what is one thing that you will do over the next week to work on your perceptual, affective, or cognitive body image? And as you're responding, they should pop up. So I would love to hear from you. So go ahead, if you haven't already, scan that QR code or type in that link, and hopefully I will see some responses popping up in a moment. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm seeing some affirmations, strength training, yoga class, sun. Alrighty. Speak kindly. Okay. So I should be able to still see some of these responses, and I'm gonna hang on to them. And you so keep responding if you'd like to. But I know that I need to save some time for you guys to ask me some questions. So it my contact info is here if you have any like additional questions and concerns that we may not get to. But Erin, if you would like to start this Q&A process with me, I would love that.
Yes, I know. I'm so excited to hear from everyone because, I mean, Gabby, you covered such
I know
right.
it was a lot.
Um, and like also gave us these very specific examples and ideas of how we can do this. So please put in your questions, any that you have. But I guess to start, one of the big things I feel like we always hear is like, okay, but I have felt better when I've changed my appearance or my body. And so, like, how do we handle that piece of it?
Yeah. So the first thing, because I've heard that too, and I think one of the initial thoughts that I have when I hear that question is, is it possible or even likely that it was other things at that time rather than your body? So I would imagine, yes, you might have felt better at that time, but what was it that was happening around you? So maybe it was that you had an increase in confidence, which then in turn increased your level of like social interaction and how much time you spent with others, or maybe you even did things that you wouldn't have ordinarily done when you looked different. So maybe, you hadn't been going to the beach and then you went to the beach for, the first time or the first time in forever, and you really enjoyed it because the beach is awesome. Like that, yes, I potentially am thinking that I'm feeling better, but it wasn't actually the change in your body necessarily that is why you felt better. It was potentially more so the change in your thoughts and feelings that made you feel better and the things that you ended up doing because of that shift. Um, and you can, again, kind of like as we just talked about, you can have that shift in your thoughts and feelings without changing your body.
Yeah, I think that's such an important piece, Gabby, because it is. It's not like, okay, well, because my body changed, then I could go to the beach. Like normally that's not what it is. It's well, no, I felt comfortable going to the beach, and that had to do with my thoughts and the way I was thinking
Hmm.
about myself. And so I can achieve that without needing to change my body, which is such a
Yeah.
crucial piece. I'm wondering also, like we talked a little bit about this, but how do we work on separating self-worth from our body image? Because it
Mm.
is
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
often tied in.
Yeah. Well, I think that part of it, and it's so funny that when I think about this, it makes me think about the webinar that I did. I don't even know if it was like 2 years ago at this point or whatnot, but there is a values component in there. So first, I would say part of it is that it's about a shift in where we place our importance, if you will. So part of that can be prioritizing who you are, and it would be an active choice, right? To prioritize who you are versus what you look like. So prioritizing or remembering too that what makes you you is your personality, your characteristics, how you engage with others. Um, and so at the end of the day, that is what makes you you. You could change what you look like all the live long day, but that doesn't change the core of who you are. And that's at the end of the day what people focus on the most. And like I said, values plays a role too. So when we're caught up in body image and what we look like, we're not, or I should say, we're likely not acting in alignment with our values either at all or as fully like as we could be, which can actually decrease self-esteem and sense of self-worth when we're not acting in alignment with our values. So by focusing less on the body image part and more on your values, you'll actually notice very likely an increase in sense of self-worth too. So I guess if I had to sum that up, where are your values and um, what we're choosing to prioritize about ourselves, if that makes sense.
I think that makes perfect sense because it is like it's that disconnect that happens when we're really entrenched in the eating disorder and in the body image struggles where we start to feel that kind of drifting away from the values, or they're at least getting skewed in a way that like is not supporting the real intention of the values. And
Yeah,
so being able to reconnect with that, I think, is such an important piece to then work really on the self-worth, because again, body image, I think, doesn't work on our self-worth. It might work on our confidence in certain
right.
situations, but our overall sense of self, definitely, that takes that deeper values work for sure. I know, the pictures you used were kind of female identifying. Does body image come up for different gender identities,
Yes.
different
Yeah, yeah.
people? Mhm.
So, I mean, when you think about it, there are standards across genders and gender identities, and so basically, the impact is similar in the sense that if you don't meet the standard or the ideal that's presented, then it leaves you feeling inadequate. And yes, the standard may be different in terms of, whether it's more muscular, less muscular, et cetera, right? But it, in my mind, I feel like it kind of boils down to similar things. It's just someone puts the standard or ideal out there. Who knows? And then we try to meet that, and we all just decide that that's what we're trying to do versus acknowledging that there's not necessarily a rhyme or reason to it other than someone put it out there, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a good point because it kind of, it talks to the cultural considerations you talked about in the beginning. Like it can be different in different cultures and in different gender identities. And like it doesn't change the fact that it's like, well, wait, why are we all listening to this standard
Right.
somebody put out
Right.
there? Like, why are we all going along with it?
Yeah.
Um, and thinking about it, like it is this constant kind of stream of images, of messaging, of things. How do we kind of deal with that bombardment that it can almost feel like from the media, um, that tells us we need to look a different way? We need to be buying that anti-wrinkle cream or those new shoes or this or whatever it is. How do we kind of tolerate that? Like, okay, this is the world we're living in,
Yeah.
and I don't think listening to it is helping me anymore.
So I will say one thing, and it would take like it's a whole probably topic in and of itself. But if people so choose and want to start perusing the topic of media literacy, I love that topic. And the short version of what that is being like a more knowledgeable consumer of media, if you will, and it's learning more. I think we all know peripherally that more often than not, what's being presented in the media is altered in some way rather than straight up what someone looks like. And so media literacy, provides you more information on things like that and reminds you of like what potentially, like if I'm thinking about the fashion and beauty industries, right? Like what their main goal actually is at the end of the day, which is making money, or even the diet industry, right? And so acknowledging that their agenda is less about how we feel and more, well, I guess it's about how we feel to make us buy their product, if you will, but like it's less about the impact long term, if you will, that it has on us. And so I think that would just be one component, right, of like reminding yourself, who is this for, what are they trying to accomplish, and no, they're not trying to go out of their way to make me feel good about myself. But then it could also look like, I think, it's definitely unrealistic to expect yourself to be able to avoid all these forms, if you will. But you can set boundaries with yourself about, some of the exposure, right? In terms of how much time you spend on social media. You can work on changing your algorithm. Um, because it's going to be really hard for you to not be exposed to it on social media if your algorithm leads you to do so. So, finding new accounts to follow and whatnot, and not actually engaging with, I guess, unhelpful forms of media for you on there. And then I think also too, um, you can utilize some of the reappraisal strategies we talked about too, in terms of like acknowledging whatever automatic thoughts come up for you when you're seeing whatever form of media it is we're talking about, what that brings up for you, and using reappraisals or even some of the other skills in uh, tending to or attuning to those specific areas.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. Like, kind of that balance of like, okay, I'm going to set boundaries and I'm also going to use my skills like when I am exposed to it because it is the world we live in and I can't really just protect myself completely from it. Yeah. Kind of thinking about, there is research on this idea of like thin privilege, pretty privilege, and that it does give access sometimes to more things. And how do we separate like our own individual focus on body image um, from recognizing like, okay, those privileges do exist in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so, and actually it's so funny because this kind of goes into media literacy a little bit in some ways, in terms of like, we really need to think about like what this research process actually looks like. So, yes, I am very aware of this research that exists out there. I hear about it often. And most of the research on appearance and these like the inequalities, if you will, so the conventionally attractive people have more job opportunities, advance in their careers, et cetera, right? Those research studies actually rely on highly subjective ratings of beauty. So in most cases, it could be like a research team just ranking a photo of people on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being strikingly unattractive or homely. Yes, we are using these terms. 2 being like a below average appearance for age and sex. 3 being like an above average appearance, because I looked at this the other day because it got brought up in a group I was leading again, actually. And then 4 kind of being this like above average, and then 5 being strikingly handsome or beautiful. And so it's just this very subjective 1 to 5 scale, right? And so not only is it that scale, if you will, because what I think is strikingly beautiful or strikingly unattractive is going to be different than what someone else thinks. So that's just one problem. But then the other component of it is that, like, there's this overemphasis on what the actual differences look like. So it really would take moving from like a 1 to a 5 to even notice like any of these differences that people are really talking about in terms of, more career opportunities, et cetera. Like, there is additional research that shows that you know, these differences in like a 3 to a 4, like you're still going to experience life pretty similar, again based off of this scale. So the research is, I guess I'm saying, like, the research is not necessarily always as cracked up as people try to make it out to be, and that there's just there are flaws in the research methods, if you will, that get used, that I would not necessarily use that as my first line of defense, if you will, in trying to explain to someone why I didn't get a job.
Yeah.
I guess I could ask them, here's the scale. Is
Why would
this
you make me?
why?
Yeah. I think that's so important because I think, a lot of media and a lot of what we're consuming is kind of bits, It's like you see the headline, but like we're not actually going in and I'm not reading the methods of the research and going through and seeing like, okay, what was the statistical data and like things like that. We're just kind of getting these blips. So recognizing that in the same way, going back to media literacy, like, okay, even with like research, having that awareness and being able to think like, okay, is this really accurate? Is this really saying what they're saying it's saying? And kind of
Mm-hmm.
looking at it a little bit more. Well, unfortunately, I know we are a little bit over time. So it's just such a great topic, Gabby, and I'm so glad you were presenting on it. And I am so um happy that everyone was able to join us today
Mm-hmm.
and come in and learn a little bit more about this. And as Gabby said, her contact info is up there, or you can also email alumni@renfrewcenter.com if you need to get in touch with us for any reason. And we hope to see you all at some of our events later this week um, and at our next month webinar. But thank you, Gabby, so much for presenting. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.